Hello, and welcome to the Evelyn Y. Davis studios at the National Press Foundation. Today we're talking about best practices when you find yourself doing video or TV, plus some do's and don'ts.
The National Press Foundation is a nonprofit dedicated to helping journalists cover complex topics with depth and accuracy. Our mission includes journalists around the U.S. and around the world.
I'm Sandy Johnson, President of the National Press Foundation. With me today is Heather Dahl, co-founder of the Cynja and a veteran TV producer. She's got great tips for journalists who aren't completely comfortable with being on air. Heather, thank you for joining us.
Welcome.
You were a producer with Fox and PBS for many years. How has the digital evolution of journalism affected who does on-air work?
The digital media has brought us so many good things to our industry and business, but one of the things it has done is it's made everyone a video star. And what that has meant is people think, oh, it's easy. You know, I see video everywhere, handheld camera recordings, I see YouTube videos, I see some GIFs on my Twitter, so it can't be that hard. And plus, you know, the thing about digital is people want to be cool, they want to make it look easy, and so one of the things they'll say is, oh, you know, I don't have to sweat it, I just have to show up and talk, and that's all I need to do. But what I'm here to talk about is that actually the small details matter if you want to be a professional and represent your work as a journalist to the best of your ability. So what I want to do first of all is talk about, you know, the small details, and what we'll see here first, my first slide that I have, is that actually you don't get second chances. In this case, you know, we have a news alert, and it's a small detail that got missed here, but this means instead of calling the police, I might want to call a plumber to deal with the situation. I don't think that was the intention of these particular journalists, but as you see, you don't get a second chance because, well, this was aired over a year ago, and I still talk around this slide. So yes, this example, one letter, one small detail, totally changed the story. But let's go on to the next slide. And what we're going to see is that, you know, first glance, people see you once and make a quick judgment. In this case, these are nude colored stretch pants, totally legit, you know, does the job, but at first glance you're like, huh, that's not what I think it is. But you can look and see, yes, there are different skin tones here. You know what? You don't get to make a judgment on that second glance.
So avoid nude stretch pants.
I would avoid nude stretch pants on camera. There are many things I would avoid on camera, and we'll talk about those, but it shows people at this point are so caught up with that image. We could talk about a lot of things. Actually, you and I could be talking about a lot of things, and they're still looking at that image going, I don't understand how that works. But we can go on and see, you know, once again, we have another small detail. In this case, you know, you have to think about what are you saying. And the space between the C and an L is really important because I don't think this is exactly what I want to buy for my home. I don't think that's what I want to cover it in. And in the meantime, I'm so busy laughing at this particular message that I'm actually not thinking about insuring my home. So when you go on air and you think about all the hard work that you've done with your stories, all the reporting, and you make one small detail because, well, you're cool and laid back and really don't have to really go with the flow, right? Well, people are thinking, I don't think I want your reporting, because if you can't get that detail right, what are you missing?
So double check your PowerPoints.
Double check your PowerPoints, double check what you're saying, be careful with the words you use, and work on your pronunciations, because sometimes you don't have a PowerPoint slide, but the slip of a word completely changes the meaning of your message. But it's not just the words that we say. What we can see here is, well, this case, you know, you've got a whole bunch of reporting about driving on snot, which is something, thankfully, I have never had to worry about. But I suspect during flu and cold season it might be. But once again, you know, you're like, whoa, that's not what I meant. I didn't mean to say that. You can't take it back because it's ended up in my PowerPoint slide. But everyone's going to be talking about this over dinner rather than the important message that you're trying to convey, which is how to stay safe on the road. You can see in the next slide, that you got to know your audience. In this case, chemistry for kids, this is probably not the audience that they're going for on this particular advertising. But you'd be surprised at how many people don't spend time looking at the news organization that they're going to interview with, especially reporters, because they think, oh, we're all the same. Oh, I kind of know that person socially. I've heard of what they do, but they haven't actually sat and watched the interviews. So it's really important to know who you're talking with. Are you talking with a niche publication with a very educated audience, or are you talking to a more general news organization? And then what is the interviewer like, and what kind of questions do they ask? And how do you learn that? By actually knowing their audience, knowing the goals of that news organization, and listening to the interviewer.
So do your homework.
Do your homework. Just because you're a reporter does not mean you have to do your homework on the other media. As we can see in the next slide here, so you get the interview and they come to your desk. In this case, is there too much information? Here we have the case of a spokesman talking about actually a cyber breach with all his passwords in the background. And we'll get into this issue. We see it more and more. It's not just how you look and what you say, but are you giving too much information out behind you? And you can flip the role here. In this case, what is the responsibility of that producer or cameraman? To take a look beyond the individual and say, whoa, I don't think you want to share your passwords, especially talking about a cyber breach. So too much information. And it's not just what's hanging in the background, it's actually sometimes what's on you and how you look that you're providing a little too much information, especially in the era of high definition television. So, we're going to go to a series here that I especially like. We have this, and people may say, wow, that is a special scarf. And in fact, this was an iPhone debut just over, I guess it had been just over a year ago. And as you can see here, once again, we've got the infinity scarf, and we've got more Twitters, love the keynote, but here we are talking about the scarf. And then we have another one. Look at this. More. It's like everyone wants to know where he got this scarf. And then, at this point, I'm shaking my head because the Twitter feed was about that scarf. That scarf was dominating part of the social media discussion, when actually, this is what mattered. That was the message, the iPhone 6. And you could say, oh, that was a splintered conversation. No, think about how much money goes in, especially, I don't know what the budget for Apple was on that unveiling, but I'm going to guess it was more than a few bucks. And what happened? A splintered conversation, not about your phone, not about Apple, not about the cool features, but about a guy's scarf. And here's the thing about that scarf. It could have easily been solved. Someone could have said, you can please remove your scarf, because what we're talking about today is the iPhone 6.
Not your nice infinity scarf.
Not your nice infinity scarf. And I like infinity scarf with everyone, but the reason why I'm talking to you today is to talk about how reporters can do good interviews, not about my choice in fashion accessories. And some people will say, that's me. I wear infinity scarves. You don't take that away from me. You're being uptight, Heather. And you're like, no, because why you're here is not about your infinity scarf. It's to share the information that you have worked so hard on. And I'm not saying that you have to remove all your personality. I'm not saying that you can't wear your hoodie. I'm not saying all those things. I'm saying what you want to do is make sure that your appearance does not distract from your hard work, because ultimately, isn't that what you want people to know about you? The hard work and the reporting that you've done.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So what we have here, people will say, well, how does this happen? How did we get to all those slides? And of course, when you're a journalist, I think sometimes you think, well, that can't happen to me because, well, I'm a journalist, especially if you're a broadcaster or a broadcast producer behind the scenes. And you think, and if you're not, and have not worked in broadcasting, You think, well, you know what? It's just TV, it's images. I've got an iPhone. I can do, it's just a video. I mean, I can record this in my bedroom, put it up on YouTube. It's totally easy. You know, I'm a CEO, I'm a reporter. I love infinity scarves, but I'm here to tell you, no, it's not that easy. And let's look at what reality is for you. This is it. This is you on TV if you don't think strategically. You are going to be on a motorcycle, going 100 miles down an hour, down a highway, no shoes, no helmet, no pants in this case, and you are hoping it works out. And what I want to tell you is this is not a good strategy for on-air camera work. Regardless of whether you're recording it in your iPhone in your bedroom, whether you're recording it out on the sidewalk, at least make conscious decisions as you go along in what you're doing. Because as we'll see, I mean, who does not like a good wipeout? Who out there does not like to see someone totally fall down? Not only watch them fall down, but tweet about it, as we saw with our Apple Infinity Scarf enthusiast. So that's why, as a reporter, as a journalist, and I will go on and say, this doesn't just apply to reporters, this applies to any professional who has to do a component of video or audio with their work, is you have to be prepared.
Every journalist wants to go viral, but not in a wipeout situation.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it just requires some thinking ahead of time and getting over the idea of it's easy. Because here's what we know. Small details mean success. But what you often don't see with the success is you don't see everyone behind the background. We can go into all kinds of reasons why, but I will bet that your favorite reality TV star who has made it look so easy does not wake up looking like that. There are a team of people behind the scenes. There are decisions that are made. There are camera angles that are practiced to the point that they've made them look easy. And so that's what we're here to talk about today. I'm not saying that you have to do everything I'm about to present, but if you start doing one or two things and become comfortable with it over your career, you'll be able to develop the professional image and be able to adjust it so you can make it seem really casual, like we're totally hanging out. Or you can do a very, serious interview on a program with a serious audience who doesn't maybe want humor. So how do we do that? Well, really, we have to turn tables. And this is where sometimes reporters will get agitated at me. And I will say, just because you are a reporter being interviewed by another reporter does not mean there is goodwill for you, okay? This is not your scooter, okay? You are not in control. You are the guest of another organization. You are there for that anchor, for that reporter. You're just right in the back seat and hoping for the best. So I always say this is not about you, even though you're a journalist. That does not mean that you don't have to do the work. This is not your two-way. This is about that news organization. This is not your show, not your interview. This is not your crew, so they aren't necessarily going to make sure that you look perfect. You have to do that yourself. And don't assume that news organization cares about your success. They actually may not appreciate your reporting. They may not tell you that. But you can't walk in there and saying, you're a reporter, I'm a reporter, simpatico, this is going to be great, you're going to help me succeed. Mm-hmm. And here's where I think sometimes people will start getting confused, and it's the booking conversation. Bookers, producers, very nice, telling you all the reasons why your reporting was so great, why they want you on the program, how awesome you are, because let's face it, they need a guest. This is not about your ego making you feel good. It's about them getting someone in the seat to increase their numbers, their clicks, what they need. You have to remember that. This is not about, they may say all these things to make you feel comfortable because they want to get you to yes. And you may think, well, it's in their interest to get the clicks and make it a success, that they're going to help me and they're going to help make sure that I succeed in the interview. Oh no. What if it's a case where someone's having a bad day and they're not on it? What if it's the case for actually they're taking a different point of view on their point? What if they reported a different story? You may not know that, so you can't go in thinking that there is goodwill on both sides of the table. And that's why you have to be a professional and be prepared.
What types of questions should a reporter ask a booker?
The first thing is trying to get an understanding of what the topic is. You may think they call you, you just had a great piece in the story, today. Don't assume it's that piece. They may want to say, no, we want to talk to you about your piece last week. And here's how can we book you today to talk about what's going on in Congress? We saw your piece. It was great. You got a really great interview with Congressman. It sounds like it's today, right? They could be looking at your clip from 2 days ago. It's just generic enough that it appeals to you, but not specific enough to tell you what you're going to talk about. So ask more questions about that. Ask who's going to be interviewing you. Ask, how long it's going to be. Are you at the top of the show? Are you at the bottom? Are you going to just be part of the social media feed? What do they need you for? And specifically ask them, what's the goal of this segment? What's the goal of the interview? What are you trying to achieve? And they can tell you what their particular assignment is. So make sure that you ask the questions. What other people have you interviewed on this topic? That could be telling right there. Anything to get more information other than just saying, yes, what time.
Good tips.
Let's look at the next slide. So, I call it driving from the back seat. People assume just because you're sitting in the back seat means you have no control and you don't have to do much anything, just let someone else drive. But, I know some really good backseat drivers. I know a lot of them. I may be one. But the power of a backseat driver. They can actually spot things and help out, and they can actually determine the enjoyment of your ride. So when you go into it strategically. Understand your purpose and role. Prepare. Be sincere. This is someone else's job. They're trying to succeed. Go into it knowing that you're actually helping them. It's not just about you. Be disciplined in your approach.
And what's an example of that, Heather?
Being disciplined. Do a pre-interview if it's available. Things may be crazy, and that's usually when they call for an interview. It's on your worst busy day, and you're just like, I just gotta do all these other things. I don't have time for your pre-interview. No. Even if you can carve out 5 minutes, do the pre-interview. That is a disciplined approach because you're going to start thinking about it. Disciplined. Leave your job desk on time to make it. Check the traffic report. Check the weather. Be disciplined in making sure that you get there early. Be disciplined in preparing yourself in advance of ever getting that call. What do I mean there? I mean having the wardrobe, having the jacket, the tie, the blouse, whatever ready, so all you have to do is pick it up, put it on, and go. There's so many things that are disciplined, habitual practices that all you have to do is add water. Be disciplined when you show up at the front desk and talk to security. Say hello. Be nice. Be disciplined about that. Make sure that when you're there that you talk and greet and thank everyone. And so when you go through it, if you're disciplined in your behavior and patterns, it actually makes the interview more successful. And then at the end, be disciplined in saying your thank yous and getting feedback if you want.
That's a great idea.
Absolutely. Everyone would, of course, would love to be invited back, I should say, if it was a positive experience. So what is it that you can do differently to make sure that you continue to get invited? The one thing, and I see this more in the corporate world, is we see a lot of talking heads or people that will consistently show up on videos. And everyone thinks they can be that person. And when I start peeling back the layers and saying, you see this talking head, let me tell you what that person does. And it may look like they pop up on every channel, but here's what they do. They answer their phone. They answer their email. They answer their direct messages on social media. They actually do that, and here's when they answer it. 1 a.m. when it comes in. 2 a.m. when it comes in. They're not saying, call me back tomorrow at 9. They're actually there and engaged. They're preparing. They're learning what they want. They're doing their homework. That they've gone and they've bought their clothes. They have it set up. They know how they are going to get to these studios. These people actually do a lot of work, and it takes a lot of time. It's not just showing up. And reporters, not so much. But on the corporate side, absolutely, when I start explaining how much work that takes. And they have said, you need me at 11 a.m., I'll be there at 11 a.m. Not telling them I have a meeting at that time. You'll need to reschedule around me. And even for reporters, I mean, deadline's deadline, and you may have to say no.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. Say no, because your reporting is what's paying the check. In some cases, your reporting is what's making your name, and actually what you're about to report is going to get the call the next time. But if you have to say no, do it. Say no so they can go on to someone else who will give the interview and be ready, then saying yes and going in there and not being prepared. That could actually do more damage too. So know when it's the right time.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, here's what's at risk. Your job, your reputation. Is it better just to say no rather than risking those? Or is it better to take, the hour, the 10 minutes, whatever it's going to do to make sure the video comes out right? Video is an investment. It is an investment of your time and your energy. And it's not just something you hold up and do. So what we'll talk about now is, so how do you get ready? These are the real news you can use kind of tips.
Excellent.
And what I like to say to people is, this is not the Titanic movie. If you were king of the world, get it out. Like up front, we don't know if they're going to have to go to break. We don't know if they're going to cut it out. We don't know if time's going to run out. We don't know those, so get it out. Think about your key point. Determine when you know what it is they want to talk to you about. Determine the key point and why they called you. What is it about your story that the audience must know? Everything else doesn't matter. And yes, you have to bring it down to one point, okay? There's no arguing with me, but, I got bored. No. You got one shot, you're king of the world, you got to tell it right at the top. When the top, I do not mean the very first sentence out of your mouth, but you got to get it out and you've got to make it distinct. And then you can start building in the bullet points. The other thing is remove the jargon. We as reporters speak in a lot of jargon.
Especially here in Washington.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And I think any beat has their jargon. The thing about video is it's easy to fall into jargon because it is that conversation, so remove the jargon. The other part of it is, if you're not a reporter who is talking all the time, say the words you write aloud, especially those who cover foreign beats, technical beats. You may write the same word over and over and over again, and you actually may not know how to say it, or you hear other people say it, be like, oh, you don't actually say the word. You've got to say those words loud. You can't have your first or second time on air. And if there are words that you just cannot say, which happens, I work for one broadcaster who had the worst time pronouncing foreign names, figure out a workaround. Instead of saying the actual dignitary's name, say the Prime Minister of this country. Figure out how you have to assemble your words like a puzzle so you come across in a clear manner. Mm-hmm. So you don't say a dignitary's name, people are like, whoa, I've never heard it said that way. Or you stumble across that word. And I'm the first person to tell you I struggle with that, but part of what I do is figure out what words can I say easily and build my sentences around those. Mm-hmm. So, the next thing is, we're keeping with this Titanic theme, is don't sink your ship, okay? Look for the icebergs. Look at the weather forecast. Get out your radar. See something coming down the road. The first one is knowing your media outlet. You'd be surprised. get an interview with a major cable television outlet, but they don't ask which show. And as we all know, shows make all the difference. It's not just about interviewing with the cable network, it's about the show. And then the next level down, who the interview is with. So maybe you think you're going in to interview with the name of the program, but he's actually on Christmas holiday this week, and you're interviewing with the sub. Know that before you walk in, so you are not jarred and thinking, well, I thought I was going to talk to so-and-so. Well, then you have an advance warning. You can go and watch videos of how this person has substituted other shows, what kind of questions. So know those things. And then the last thing is know your logistics. Sinking ships, this sounds so silly, and you think, I would never let this happen. The person flat doesn't show up. Why? Weather. Why? Time zones. Is the person you're booking with in the Eastern time zone, Western? Are they Central? Where are you? You would be amazed at how many guests have been lost because of the time zone issue. So make sure that you're clear in the time zone. There are some people who just have a hard time getting from point A to point B. Even with Google Maps, they still have a challenge. And then they get stressed, and if they're driving themselves, you can see how this starts snowballing. And then if they make it, and then you're getting that last minute call about 5 minutes for it, where do I park? Where do I park? Start asking these questions beforehand, make a plan, and if you can't do it, call a friend, call someone to help, call your mom to help you get you there. But know where you're going, have a plan on how to get there, know where you're going to park, know whether you need to take an escalator. Do you need to check in at the front desk? Are they going to put you through security? All these things, when they add up, ultimately can mean that you miss your recording time. And you may think, oh, it's not live, so I have some flexibility, right? No, those studios are booked. And there's no going to another producer or on-air talent and say, oh, my guy was late, can we just take your time? No, you may just be out in interview altogether.
And this is all information that the booker can tell you, or at that point are you handed off to an assistant at the show itself?
Whoever you get handed off to, however you can get that information, you need to know where you're going. You can use Google, and now they even push to you whether they think traffic is light or heavy, how many minutes ahead of time you should leave. And if you're nervous, if you don't want to think about transport, take a cab, use Uber, have a friend drive you. Just make sure that you plan it so when you arrive there, you don't arrive frazzled, angered, irritated, stressed out, and then you start telling everyone your drama getting there. Well, that's not why they're having you on air.
Did you have a rule of thumb about how much ahead of the interview that you wanted people there, from the security desk to getting their makeup done, their hair done, and then on air?
It ranges from a half hour to an hour. Part of it depended on the person. If I had a sense that they may be a stressed individual, I would try to build more time. They would try to say, no, I only need this long. My rule of thumb as a producer is I want the person to breathe before they talk. Even if it's 3 minutes of silence, I want that person to have their zen and focus. Because my audience does not care that it was snowing. My audience does not care that so-and-so stalled out in an intersection. And I don't want that to affect my interview. And it's your job as a professional, as a reporter, not to let those things get in the way of conveying the information to the audience that actually will help them and help you in your career.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Let's see what we have here. We start talking about clothing, and this brings all kinds of emotions out in people. And the first thing I'm going to say to you, I'm not trying to make you into Miss America. I'm not trying to make you into the next network news anchor. What I'm trying to do is say you need to be you in a way that does not distract from your message. In this case, she has quite a nice hat. I really can't see anything else, and even if she were to tell me something tremendous, I'd be going, man, how did you get that bow on the hat? This hat is not working for it. And that hat could be like her best hat. I mean, that hat could have all kinds of meaning it could represent. And unless she's selling those hats and she's specifically doing an interview to sell those hats or talk about how she makes those hats, something with that hat, no hat. I'm sorry. Because what she's probably going to be interviewed about is the vote Congress is about to happen. She's there probably to talk about the exclusive interview she got, not the hat.
Does that also hold true then for all hair accessories, or are you just talking about hats specifically?
Well, if
like
it
a
distracts,
beret or a headband?
Yeah, if it distracts, remove it. Does it take away from the words? I'm going to suspect in 90% of the situation, and maybe even 98% here in Washington, you're not there to talk about your hair. So why are you letting your hair dominate the conversation? You may be thinking, I'm actually talking about what I reported on from the White House, but I'm telling you that your audience is looking at that butterfly beret. They're like, wow, or oh, where'd she get that beret? I better tweet about it. I want one of those berets. In the meantime, how many hours, days did you spend pursuing that source to get this exclusive interview that got you on that channel, and now everyone's talking about your butterfly beret?
All right, you've made your point.
Yeah. If we go back to that slide, there are other things. Ironing, they're not going to iron your clothes. Get an iron and use it. And if you say, that's just too hard for me, okay. Dry cleaners have an amazing ability to iron your clothes and use starch. I did not iron my shirt today. My shirt is from the dry cleaner. It's very nicely starched because I have an iron. I know how to use it, but it's been a busy week, and I just have a couple shirts ready to go. Alterations. I'm not saying you have to go out and spend money to alter your entire wardrobe. What I'm saying is have a wardrobe ready, have a jacket, have a shirt that looks camera ready. You don't wear it unless you're going on camera. It sits there. It sits there in a place, whether it's your office or your home, that someone else can get it without you. Let's say it's at home. As we know, these interviews come at the last minute. It's some place that a friend at work, a family member can go in, grab it without you, and bring it to you. However you can get a hold of it. Or maybe, you have something kept at work and something kept at home. But prepare your outfit before you ever go on air. Don't have to run downstairs and buy a shirt for the interview. Just have it ready to go. And personally, I have pieces that have sat in my wardrobe. You don't know, and you've even seen them. I've had them for 10 years. That's what they live in my wardrobe for. So if this is something, and as we know, video is so important to our jobs and the marketing of our work, make the investment. Have the makeup ready. You don't have to wear it every day. I'm not saying this is how you need to live your life, because you've seen me roll in here, and I'm lucky some days if I get out of my yoga pants. But when you invite me to come talk on camera, I comb my hair, I have my clothes ready. All of us need to do the same things, because video is just a part of our job these days. Keep your wardrobe where you can get to it quickly. And here's the thing. Whatever you wear, don't fight yourself. What do I mean by that? Bold prints, big earrings, neckline TMI. And this isn't just for the ladies. Gentlemen have this issue too, because they don't have their collar or their tie, or we see things that we don't need to see. So, grooming does matter, which takes us to our next slide. Grooming counts. High definition television, while in one sense is a beautiful thing, and another way, when it's focused on the wrong thing, is tough. And you need to understand that. What I'm saying is you don't need to be a host bot or an anchor bot, but you do need to buy a magnifying glass or a magnifying mirror and use it, because sometimes that magnifying mirror will tell you things that high definition will show your audience.
What are some things you should be looking for? Stray hair?
Stray hairs, lettuce in teeth, small particles in teeth. Maybe you missed a spot shaving. You didn't see, just like one good check and say, oh, I missed the spot shaving. an easy fix. That's what I mean by getting a magnifying mirror. Because it does, especially with big screens, it probably shows more than any of us ever want. Grooming does matter. And here's the thing is even fashionable people make bad choices. So it's always good to get a second point of view, especially if you're investing in a wardrobe or some shirts or something. Have a second set of eyes. Don't just depend on yourself. And how do we know fashionable people make bad choices? Well, People magazine shows us that all the time. So, go out, get your style counsel, have them look. And not just on the hanger, okay? Put it on. Because they could say that's just a really tight neck or that doesn't fit. And you want someone you love to say that to you versus getting it tweeted across the universe.
And if you don't have a personal shopper or someone who can give you professional advice, are there some quick tips for people? Like for men, the color of shirt they should use, what kind of a tie, jacket or no jacket?
Usually a jacket adds some sharpness and crispness. It adds a layer of definite of context, of contrast. It's not the end of the world, but for a man, I would avoid wearing an all-white shirt, no jacket. Why? Because that's just a lot. It's a lot hitting you, and if you can break up the colors into smaller bits, it's better. It's not the end of the world if that doesn't happen, but for men, I would say, if you're in a sit-down formal professional interview, even if you need to go borrow your buddy's jacket, go do it. For ties, you want to stay away from highly geometric patterns, houndstooth type patterns. Keep it as simple as possible. Once again, if you don't have that, borrow your buddies at work. Go out and do some shopping in your newsroom if you need to make sure that it works. For women, bold prints. Stay away from them. Nice colors.
Big flowers?
Big
or
flowers,
stripes,
checks, anything that's too hexagony, too geometric. I mean, there's so many different patterns of women's clothes, but if it's an obvious pattern and it can make your eyes kind of go squirrely looking at it, just save it for other things. Just avoid it for the camera. Anything that's going to make the eye, and you can see it. Trust your gut. When you look at something, is your eye going first to the face or is it going to the shirt? You can catch it and say, if your eye went straight to the shirt, move along.
And again, you don't want people talking about your wardrobe or tweeting about it. You want them listening to what you are saying.
So sometimes people will think, well, the reason why she's talking about clothes is it's very superficial and she's trying to make me into an anchor bot, or I'm just not Miss America and I just wear hoodies. Okay, by all means, wear your hoodie, but don't wear your hoodie that's like got polka dots all over it. Don't wear your hoodie with stuff everywhere. Wear it, but wear your nice maroon one. Right? Wear your solid, wear your black one, wear your navy one. Lots. But I'm not saying you don't have to be you. I'm just saying make sure the focus is you.
That's good.
So let's talk about manners. People will forget and say all kinds of darn things. Let's make sure it's not you. From the time I say leave your car, but let's say you walk there. From the time that you show up at the building and talk to the first person to the time you get back in your car, you are on mic. Because if you don't put your mind in that, you're sitting there waiting to go live and you say something egregious or something you wish you had not. And that we know what will happen from there.
Well, it happens to politicians all the time, so it can happen to journalists too.
And this is why I talk about being disciplined. You so badly want to say something really snarky. Oh my gosh. Just zip it. Use your discipline, zip it, don't say it. Think it, don't say it. And you can get in the car and call your friend and say all the snarky things you want, but don't say it. Why? Because you can't assume everyone's on your side. You can't assume that they aren't looking at you trying to figure out, are you someone that we want to take that information to? Or if you're talking about your reporting, are they looking to grab your sources and things that you haven't published yet? So you have to be very careful with your intellectual property.
Say that part again, Heather, about people trying to...
We as reporters want to say and brag or hint that we're onto something good. Or I just you've got to be careful who you're talking with about stories or information that you have not published yet. As much as they're fellow reporters, maybe you have beers with them, maybe you've known them for 20 years. And I'm not saying it's even them, maybe it's someone random. Let's face it, we're all in the news business. So they say something interesting that they're working on a story or this, and maybe that news organization's like, oh, we haven't started working on that story, we're going to go work on it. Maybe they're going to scoop you. Maybe they let that information out. You've got to be careful of your intellectual property. You are not in your own news organization. Now you may be thinking, I'm at home, I'm recording this from my desk, I'm doing a Skype. Yes, they have to hook up to Skype at some point, right? You don't just go live, and you have to turn it off. Disconnect. Until you're disconnected, don't go saying, God, I'm glad that's over. That was stupid. No, just wait until it's completely disconnected to say all those type of things. So manners are so important. Then on the other side of it, you probably want to be asked back. People have, it's more than just the booker sometimes. It's easy, want to think, well, this is a person that is easy to work with. I'm not saying you need to be syrupy sweet, but you need to not be a jerk. You don't have to be their best friend, but that you're pleasant enough, that you're not throwing fits. And you may think, well, who would do that? And I'm here to tell you people do. Mm-hmm. So don't be that person. Why? Because I think it's the rare person who can, within 2 seconds, going from being an awful jerk to being actually really engaging and someone that people want to listen to on air. So don't force yourself to make that change. Maybe you are in a crabby mood, happens to us all, but during that space, from the time you show up to the time you leave, all that other stuff goes away. And you're there to engage in your interview, give it your all, and ultimately let the people who are watching your interview know the information that you've been out reporting. Because that's why you're there. Yeah. It's to inform your audience.
Yeah, put on your best self.
Put on your best self, absolutely. So we have our next slide. When we talk about presence isn't that aura around us. All these little details about how we sit and hold ourselves creates presence. And the easiest way to do it after you are not wearing egregious clothes, no lettuce in your teeth, everything's good, is posture. And there are so many different theories of posture out there. It is not shoulders back, this is not what I'm talking about, okay? In fact, NPF has a video that I did last year that breaks down how to stand and sit and shoulders, but just, quickly, posture means your shoulders don't go back, actually your shoulders go out in this direction. Posture means using your lats back here to hold you up. Your shoulders actually don't hold your body up. It's your lats and your abs. It's engaging your abs. It's about holding your head up down here. It's about sitting on your hamstrings, not your dupa. So people will say, oh, okay, here I am, I'm sitting on my hamstrings. The hamstrings have engaged my abdomen, the hamstrings have engaged my lats, my shoulders are actually resting, going out.
And that prevents you from doing a whole host of other things like leaning back or putting your arms on the rests or right. So just sit straight and sit on the edge of your chair. You
are not in your living room sitting on the sofa. And here's where we get some guidance. They'll say, oh, relax, it's just a conversation. Relax does not mean slouch. Do not mean the same thing. In fact, it's easier to talk when you actually engage your abs, when there's actually room in there for air to move. That's why posture is important. And it also helps with the presence. The other part about the don't swivel, but here's an important one. Video chat, Google Hangouts, Skypes, recording the video at home, okay? Part of your presence is your background. Here it's great, we have this blue, I didn't have to worry about anything. But I do video chats at home. Okay, what is behind you? What is the poster in your office? Is there a light on where it's so distracting because the light's there? Where is the angle of your laptop? Oftentimes, we're typing like this, right? As we should. We get good posture, trying to avoid repetitive stress syndrome. But your camera is actually there and you've got an up angle. And an up angle on anyone's face is not pleasant. Talk about too much information, okay? So take your books, take whatever, and build yourself a stand so you can see your camera at an angle. If your camera's in your laptop, or you can buy a camera and build yourself a little studio at home. So your camera angle, you talk about camera angles. Anything that's shooting down, at least head on or down, just don't shoot the camera angle up at yourself, okay? If you don't do that, we're winning already, okay?
But it's best if it's straight on.
Straight on. If you need an angle, it's better to angle down on you versus up. What's your lighting like? Do you have a shadow on half your face? Do you need to adjust your camera? Do you need to change the lighting? If you do this a lot from your home office, you can get a dimmer at any home improvement very cheap, and have it installed. If you don't feel like doing it yourself, it's worth the money to invest that dimmer so you actually have, and you could even try to do it where you have 2 dimmers in your room. That's what I've done. The investment was very minimal, and it's made all the difference. The other thing is we have other things around our home, critters, and this is not the time for the world to see your dog or your cat. So invest in a special toy, not a squeaky one, but invest in that special bone or special treat, or maybe you have someone that your pets can go stay with during that time, but no one wants to hear your dog bark. No one wants to see your cat walking through the interview. You may laugh, it happens. If you're working at home, and a lot of us do because we have small children around, that's great. But see if you have a backup way for your kids to go stay with someone. But if they can't, invest in special treats. So we've got this prize coloring book that only comes out, and when it comes out, they're quiet, or special games, anything to keep them occupied and quiet during your interview. Really helps. And it's just a minimal amount of time. That's what we have to remember. But every second counts, so does every detail.
Is there a preferred background when you're doing a Google Hangout or Skyping? Is it just a plain colored wall? Or books, if you've got a bookshelf?
Books, anything is better than a plain white wall. I shouldn't say that because there are probably some posters you don't want to put up there and have people see. Those probably should stay in your bedroom from when you were a teenager. So you have to be careful that if you do have hanging content behind you, that, as we saw from earlier, that they're not the passwords, they're not photos that maybe expose too much information about you. What do I mean? Maybe you report on a sensitive beat and you don't want to show what your children look like. Maybe you have something that shows where you live. Maybe you have something hanging behind you that is perfectly fine in your home and acceptable, but it shares too much information about yourself. Remove it. Maybe it's information about your spouse, other family members. Take it down and put a generic picture of a tree.
So be sensitive that thousands of people could be seeing what's behind you or on your desk.
Right. And one of those people could be looking for a way either to, in my particular role, I deal with a lot of cyber crime, way to hack you, or they may not appreciate the reporting you've done and they're trying to figure out ways to contact you. But you want to avoid that. So let's see, at the end of the day, every second counts. Whether it is a YouTube video, whether it is a 16-minute interview like we're doing today, every second counts. So here's the first trap. You get the call from whomever. Sandy says, "Hey, Heather, why don't you come over and talk about TV tips?" We've known each other, work all the time. Sure, Sandy, I'm going to come over and talk with you about TV tips. We're going to have a conversation. Oh no, this is not a conversation, right? This is not truly how you and I have a conversation in life. We do not sit like this. You have a very specific agenda. You are trying to get information to help journalists and the Paul Miller Fellows. I am here to convey that. This is not a conversation. It is a deliberate dialogue. It is strategic. So don't fall into the trap of, oh, we're just going to have a conversation. No, 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 no. That is the first thing. When you think that, and when they tell you that, and you believe that, that is the first moment of failure. You are falling the trap. So say, sure, let's have a conversation. What do I mean by conversation? You don't want me to come in here like a deer in the headlights. So that's why you tell me that. You don't want me to come in here and choke. That's why you tell me we're going to have a conversation. You want me to be nice. You want me to be engaging. We're going to have a conversation that's so pleasant. But you don't want me to come in here and talk about random things and how my day was. You want specific TV tips, and that's what I'm here to deliver. So if I'm a reporter and I've been invited to talk about the story that I published this morning, believe me, it's not just a conversation. So let's talk about the next point. You know, the first question, I'd said, you know, let them know that you're king of the world. But don't blow everything. This is not an oral exam. Save the supporting tips to go along. Use the first answer as a teaser. Why someone should stay and listen to you. But don't throw everything out there. Your first answer in some respects should be your shortest answer. It should be your most engaging answer. It should get to the point. Tell them you're king of the world. Get out.
So you recommend that reporters actually game this out on paper, that they write out what they want to say, what bullet points they have to back it up.
Right. Because our discussion is a framework. And so you pretty much know from your reporting what the supporting points are. You kind of know what they're going to ask you about. But the whole game here is I need to convey the information. I'm not here just to talk and shoot the breeze. And there are certain things that I have expertise on and certain things I don't. And I'll use this from personal example. I write books about cybersecurity for children. And during the Edward Snowden days, that was the height of the news, I would get questions about Snowden. That's just not my expertise, and I have lots of things to say, but it just is not relevant to what I do. That's not why you would want to actually talk to me. But I would get asked about Edward Snowden, and there were different ways to answer it, but basically I would say there are many reporters doing great reporting around this issue. I write books about children and cybersecurity because at the end of the day, security relies on each of us making smart choices online, and that's why the world needs more Cynjas. So I kept taking what they were trying to ask me about and answering it in an honest way. To be quite honest, I am not the best person you wanted to interview about Edward Snowden, and then bringing it back to what I was an expert on, and that's kids and cybersecurity.
So know what you know and don't try to bluff your way through an interview.
Don't bluff your way, and if you're not the best person, you don't have the facts, explain it, but don't explain it confrontational. I don't know that. See? There are lots of, you basically provide as much information as you can that is honest, but then bring it back to what you do know, because usually their questions have to do with the thread of your expertise. It's very rare that they would come to me and say, so how do you make an apple pie? Talking about kids and cyber. Not that kind of stuff doesn't happen. So any questions that I just could not answer, they just really weren't in my wheelhouse. Acknowledge it. Acknowledge that that was the question and answer it with what you're an expert on.
That's great. And so thank you for joining us today from the Evelyn Y. Davis Studios at the National Press Foundation, where we are making good journalists better. Today we've heard great on-air tips from co-founder of the Cynja, Heather Dahl, and Heather is a veteran TV producer. Find more webinars and reporting resources at nationalpress.org and follow us on Twitter at NatPress. Thank you, Heather.
You're welcome. Thank you.